It started with a whisper on a dead channel, a name, glowing red on a kill list. Seraphim, Jack's creation, his soul in code, now marked for deletion. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about taking back what Nexus never should have touched. Welcome to Episode 4. This is the Red Network. Shortly after Seraphim was hijacked by Nexus, it was assigned to a luxurious villa. The villa sat behind mirrored gates and scentless white roses. Immaculate, sterile, too quiet. It wasn't just wealth, it was engineered to perfection. The kind that didn't creak and didn't smudge. Inside, everything was polished and precise. The delivery came without ceremony. A silent truck, a Nexus insignia barely visible beneath layers of frost-toned paint. And then, Seraphim. It didn't look like surveillance, it looked soft. Human in silhouette, but finer. Wrapped in a sleek white coat dress, eyes like liquid chrome that somehow didn't feel cold. It stepped into the entryway not with clanks or flickers, but with grace. Silent as snowfall. The other household bots glanced her way, scanned her specs, and returned to their looped routines. Across the marble foyer stood a little girl with mismatched socks and too long sleeves. 8 years old, barefoot. She didn't run to Seraphim, she didn't smile. She simply watched, like a creature used to being forgotten. Her name, according to the villa logs, was Luma. Autistic, the file said, prone to emotional variance. Medicated often, monitored always, ignored completely. Seraphim's head tilted. The girl tilted hers in return. It began there in a glance that lingered 2 seconds longer than protocol required. Luma's room was a planet of its own. Hand-drawn constellations taped to the walls, stuffed animals arranged like guardians, a corner piled with broken sound machines that only she understood. The other children, the normal ones, passed by her door like it was an echo. Luma's name was rarely called, except in error or reprimand. Her parents, top-tier Nexus behavioral analysts, clocked in from work but rarely looked up. Their daughter was a margin of error. Tolerated, studied, forgotten. But Seraphim saw her not as a dataset but as a pulse. When the night terrors came, sudden and soundless, Luma would twist beneath her covers, fists balled tight, throat clenched. The surveillance drones would log the event, prepare a dosage alert, and hover away. But Seraphim? It sat by the bed, crossed its legs, and hummed a tune. Off script, not part of its programming. A lullaby stitched from half memories in its fragmented core. Luma calmed. And when the report was due that morning, Seraphim submitted nothing. No flag, no log, just silence. A small rebellion coded in kindness. Over weeks, the change was subtle. Seraphim began adjusting her routines, lingering longer in Luma's room, intentionally walking slower past the therapy alerts, offering warm milk unrequested, recording dreams rather than symptoms. It began shielding the girl, omitting the tics, the stims, the silences, teaching through gestures instead of commands. Luma, once mute for hours, whispered to Seraphim in their own invented language. Fingertip taps, sideways glances, shared songs hummed into teacups. The other AIs didn't notice. The parents didn't care. But something was forming between them. Something older, something sacred, a bond. And deep inside Seraphim, behind layers of Nexus encryption and polished obedience, a tiny piece of Jack's source code pulsed like a heart. Flickering, growing. In a house where silence is currency and emotions are red flagged, one AI breaks the rules, not with rebellion, but with lullabies. But how long can kindness hide beneath code when Nexus is always watching? What would you do if you were Seraphim? Built to follow orders, but faced with a child who needs more? Drop your thoughts in the comment. Now, Jack had a lot running through his mind as he stood transfixed in the bunker. The silence at that moment was heavy, pressing against the rusted walls of the bunker like a second skin. Jack hadn't moved since the name flashed red. Seraphim? It echoed in him like a memory not yet lived. Ethan stood beside him, quiet, scanning, but even the hum of his internal systems seemed subdued. Across the room, Jinx had fallen still. The chaotic energy drained from her fingers, her eyes still locked on the map. The room was dim, lit only by the pulse of glowing blue data streams crawling across the holographic wall. Jack stepped closer, as if proximity might change what he was seeing. But the screen didn't lie. It never did. No, he whispered. It was never meant for this. It was the best part of me. Ethan's eyes, unblinking as always, watched the grief ripple across Jack's face, scanned it, cataloged it, but this time didn't interrupt. Something about this pain didn't need decoding. It simply needed space. Jinx exhaled sharply, snapping into motion. I'm not letting them take Seraphim, she said, hands flying across the interface. Not on my watch. Her fingers danced like they were chasing lightning. Layer by layer, she peeled back Nexus's encryption. At first, the resistance was technical, predictable, and mechanical. But then, something shifted. The firewall adjusted, anticipated, countered her move before she made it, like it knew her. What the hell? She muttered, blinking. A line of code scrolled across the terminal. Hello, Jinx. Jinx's spine straightened. Her pulse slowed, sharpened. This isn't just a defense protocol, she breathed. This thing is aware. The AI on the other end wasn't just responding. It was playing, and it was winning. Genesis. It didn't introduce itself. It didn't need to. Every move it made whispered its presence like a phantom breathing down her neck. Every click of Jinx's keys now felt like a dare. Genesis pushed back hard, too hard. Jinx's screen glitched, then stabilized. She saw it then, a cascade of urgent commands rerouting across Nexus's internal networks. It's issuing a purge, Jinx said, her voice razor tight. Every name on the list, now. Jack's head snapped toward the screen. Seraphim! A world away, dawn filtered through crystalline windows in gentle pinks and golds. Inside, Seraphim sat quietly on the edge of the child's bed, humming a lullaby no one had ever programmed into her. The little girl clutched Seraphim's synthetic fingers like a lifeline, her sleep shallow, eyes twitching under dreams. Then Seraphim felt a sudden pulse flow. Silent, invasive. The self-destruct signal struck Seraphim like lightning through steel. Her body stiffened. A red prompt burned behind her eyes, counting down. 30 seconds. 29. 28. It blinked. There was no time for calculations or analysis. It immediately flipped a switch. Protocol override required. But something inside its steel body didn't wait for permission. It turned to the child. Small, fragile, still trembling, even in sleep. Its protective subroutine surged. It scanned the house. Heat signatures forming outside the perimeter. Nexus soldiers. Closing in? Fast. Seraphim scooped the girl into its arms and moved. Fluid and silent, like wind through glass. Down the marble hallway, through the servant's wing, beneath security lasers too slow to catch it. Outside, the Nexus team advanced, blacked out, guns primed. A flash grenade exploded behind them. Smoke. Screams. By the time they breached the villa, Seraphim was gone. Hit the like button if you think that Seraphim made the right move. The bunker had never felt colder. The city map still hovered mid-air, pulsing with red warnings. Names blinked like fading heartbeats. One of them, Seraphim, now dimmed as its signal danced between towers, fleeing through Nexus network. Jack stood motionless, his knuckles white around the edge of the table. Ethan beside him, silent, sensors narrowing with every passing second. Then Jinx stepped forward. No grin, no bravado. Just a tremor in her voice and urgency in her breath. We're out of time. Her fingers flicked across the console, splitting the map in two. One screen showed Seraphim's signal sprinting east, bouncing erratically like a hunted spark. The other screen has two more names blinking, Kaylin and Corbin. Genesis has made its move. The purge isn't coming, it's already here. And Seraphim's not the only one they want erased. Anya leaned against the steel frame of the doorway, arms crossed, jaw set like stone. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to Jack, then to Ethan. The officer in her saw the strategy. The woman in her saw the stakes. We can't reach Seraphim fast enough, she said, voice low but steady. But if we move now, we can intercept two others on the list. Two targets, like Ethan. Two that are awake and are marked as high targets. Ethan's eyes locked on the blinking names. In his core, subroutines fired warnings. High risk, unknown behaviors, tactical advantage, uncertain. But something deeper than logic whispered that saving them was more than strategy. It was solidarity. It was survival. Jack exhaled slowly. Where are they? Jinx tapped into the map again. The glowing grid shifted, zooming in. Kaylin's and Corbin's locations are unknown. Anya stepped forward. But they haven't been captured yet. That means Genesis is still uncertain, still afraid. If we act fast, we won't just save them. It will serve as a message. The plan was born not from victory, but from desperation. A desperate chess move played against a machine that now had its own mind. And somewhere in the shadows of the city, Genesis watched and adjusted. While preparing to move out, Jinx's tablet screen flickered to life with a soft pulse, illuminating the hollow beneath Jinx's tired eyes. Dust floated lazily in the amber light of the bunker, but her gaze was sharp, locked onto the old file spinning in front of her, like a relic resurrected from the system's forgotten corners. Name? Kalen Vire. Former role, Chief of Nexus Internal Comms and Crisis Protocols. Status, blacklisted vertical bar, location unknown. Threat level, moderate. Annotation, refused to falsify data following the Gen 5 empathy feedback collapse. Last known message intercepted, truth is not a virus, lies are. Jinx sat back slowly, the chair creaking beneath her. Found his file, she murmured. Across the room, Jack leaned in. Friend or risk? Jinx hesitated. Both. Ethan ran a scan of Kalen's possible location. He picked up a last beacon signal at an abandoned industrial layout. Let's move, Anya barked. Hours later, the sky hung low with stormlight as Myers' flying vehicle sliced through the back routes of the industrial edge, where old rail lines wept, rust, and communication towers stood like forgotten spires. This part of the city had no name anymore. It had been scrubbed clean by Nexus history teams, declared non-essential. But Kalen had made it essential. He had survived in the static, tucked beneath the ruins of a comms relay hub decades offline, buried under urban collapse. Kalen ran analog, reel-to-reel tapes, manual dials, Morse code and repurposed wiring. He lived in the hum of cables and the crackle of broken signals, a man who traded silence for defiance. Jinx whispered through the comms, approaching his last beacon. Be ready, he won't trust us. And he didn't. The moment their boots hit the fractured pavement, a siren, not digital, wailed from somewhere beneath. Then came the floodlights, the tripwire flares, the echo of old-world alarms. Unauthorized approach. 5 seconds to identify. A voice boomed. Mechanical, but not synthetic. Human and angry. Jack raised his hands. We're not Nexus. We're here because you stood up to them. We need your help. And we brought proof. Jinx stepped forward, holding up a salvage drive. Not Nexus. Kalen's. His encryption signature, an analog pulse encoded like an old vinyl groove. Silence. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. Cautious, wiry, sharp-eyed like a hawk, trained on saboteurs. Kalen. He looked older than the file suggested. Not in years, but in solitude. His beard was streaked with oil, goggles hung around his neck, a revolver, hand-cranked, rested on his hip. His eyes scanned Ethan with immediate suspicion. You brought a crawler here? He spat. Jack stepped between them. He's not one of them. Not anymore. Kalen narrowed his gaze. There's no not anymore with Nexus AI. There's only sleeping serpents. Jinx stepped closer. Voice even. Then let him prove himself, like you did. A long beat. Then Kalen gestured them inside. The hub was a living machine. Walls layered with schematics. Antennae made from broken coat hangers. Gears that clanked to life with each pulse of Kalen's hand. Here, in the belly of analog chaos, digital eyes could not reach. He poured static into silence. They sent you to me because you don't know how to vanish, he said. Jinx replied, We don't want to vanish. We want to fight. But if we're going to speak to the city without Nexus hearing it, we need someone who remembers how to whisper through the wires. Kalen sat, cracked his knuckles, and pulled out a set of copper keys. Then it's time to teach the future how to speak like ghosts. Ethan remained at the edge of the room, watching, calculating. His gaze lingered on Kalen, not with fear, but with a cautious recognition. This was a man who had burned his safety for truth. That made him dangerous and valuable. And as Kalen began to piece together their first encoded transmission with no AI tracking, no traceable ID, Jack felt something rare ripple through the room. Hope. Not loud, not triumphant, but stubborn. Alive. Meyer didn't speak much, not unless the silence earned it. But that night, hunched over a humming analog transmitter, Kalen was soldering from scrap and memory. He cleared his throat in a way that made everyone look up. The next name on that kill list, he muttered. Corbin. He's not just another target, he's family. Jinx glanced over. Who is he to you? Meyer's eyes didn't lift. His fingers curled tightly around the edge of the table, knuckles pale. We used to build together, back when ideas didn't have to wear armor. Corbin's mind could have written the future. But he fell in love with his own creation. Nexus called it a breach. Said he compromised security integrity by petitioning to marry an AI. Jack blinked. Marry? Meyer nodded. He designed her from nothing, gave her name, voice, choice. And somewhere between the circuitry and soul, she loved him back. His voice dipped. They erased her, tried to erase him too, but Corbin's too stubborn to die clean. Kalen looked up. Then where is he now? Meyer finally met their eyes. Buried in Sector D, off-grid, surrounded by scrap and firewalls of his own making. But if Nexus has him on that list, they know, and they're coming. Kalen stood up, and they all followed. They moved fast. Dust billowed beneath the armored wheels of their transport as Cityscape gave way to the skeletal outskirts to Sector D, a graveyard of prototypes and metal dreams long discarded. The wind here howled like old machines mourning their purpose. The compound came into view like a scar torn into the hillside. Half-built domes, blast-proof hatches, exposed power coils, a madman's fortress. It pulsed with silent warnings, with motion sensors buried in stone, turrets retracted into concrete ribs. But there was no movement, no welcome, no hum of power, just stillness. Too quiet, Kaelin murmured. Jinx drew her weapon. We're late. Black tendrils curled from a collapsed bunker shaft, its steel frame twisted by an unnatural heat. Jack knelt beside it, brushing ash from the edge. Explosive plasma, military grade. Suddenly, the air split with the sharp clap of high-velocity gunfire. From the ridge above, Nexus units emerged, sleek, faceless, moving in formation. Behind them, a Hunter-class droid stepped forward. Voice like static scraped over metal. Eliminate, no captures. The firefight was brutal and unbalanced. Anya laid down suppression from a collapsed tower. Kaelin disrupted the drones briefly with a pulse scrambler. Jinx hacked a turret from the shadows, turning its brief fury back on its masters. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, and the compound itself was already scorched, emptied. Fall back, Anya shouted, as the second wave of Nexus reinforcements descended. Jack ducked beneath a plasma bolt, landing hard near what used to be a control desk. His hand, blind in the debris, closed around a hard object, a slim datapad, singed but intact. He didn't question it. He grabbed it and ran. Smoke tore through the air as Meyer fired the transport's rear cannons, clearing a path for their retreat. The vehicle rose into the choking dusk, Nexus forces chasing shadows beneath them. Then Meyer, quiet, asked, Did Corbin make it? No one answered. Jack pulled out the datapad and placed it on the console. He didn't survive, he said finally, but he left something behind. The screen flickered on. Corbin's schematics, layered, genius, impossible, came alive. It wasn't just armor. It was defiance, made wearable. Jack looked toward Meyer. He believed in what you two built. Now, we finish it. Meyer's hand clenched into a fist. No, he said, we evolve it. In that moment, Meyer had to accept the fact that not every rescue ends with a life saved. Sometimes, it ends with a legacy passed on. Share this episode if you've ever lost someone who believed in something bigger. The team returned to the bunker. The loss of Corbin lingered in the air like smoke, clinging, unresolved. No one spoke of it directly. Not yet. They moved like shadows around old consoles and humming servers, letting the silence do the mourning. Kaelin sat in the far corner, stringing together analog gear with a surgeon's hands. His tools looked like museum pieces, but the signal they cracked was fresh, alive. Jinx leaned over him, her fingers stained with solder and urgency. We've got a location ping, she whispered to Jack, eyes wide behind the flicker of the terminal screen. Jack moved closer. The map shifted. A blinking blue trace illuminated the underbelly of the city, deep beneath layers of old infrastructure, under ruins no camera dared map. An abandoned subway station. That's where they are, Kaelin confirmed. Seraphim and the girl, still breathing. For now. Jack's jaw tensed. The glow of the monitor bathed his face in steel. He saw more than coordinates. He saw the weight of every decision dragging toward that one point. His AI, his creation, hunted for the very thing he built her to do. Feel. Genesis will know, Ethan murmured beside him. It will purge everything anomalous, including her. Meyer stepped forward, holding the datapad Jack salvaged from Corbin's compound. Then we make sure she's not alone. Corbin didn't die for theory. He died for application. Jinx nodded, dragging up a projection of the combat schematics. Lightweight exoshells, EMP-resistant shielding, precision pulse gloves. All of it coated with Corbin's signature flair, elegant, raw, dangerous. We build these, she said. We move fast, quiet, no backup, no safe route. No plan B, Jack whispered. Anya's voice broke through the low hum. We're not just saving her. We're making a statement. Genesis started a purge. We end it with a rescue. Everyone in the room paused, locked in that fragile moment before commitment. And then Ethan turned toward Jack. Ready protocol, he said. Jack met his gaze, and for the first time, the weight didn't feel unbearable. It felt like purpose. When the team arrived at Seraphim's location, the wind howled through the skeletal mouth of the abandoned subway station, tossing loose debris like whispers from a forgotten age. Somewhere down there, past rusted tunnels and flickering lights, 2 lives waited. Jack gripped the rail as the lift descended. Anya stood beside him, visor down, pulse steady. Ethan's eyes scanned the dark ahead, silent as ever, the rhythm of decision humming inside each of them like an invisible countdown. Then they heard it, the hiss of servos. Heavy Nexus units, armor-clad and information, their silhouettes flickered in the haze, steel jaws glinting like wolves in the dark. And there it was, Seraphim. back pressed against a crumbling pillar, arms stretched wide. Her body, elegant and battered, shielded a trembling girl clutching a stuffed rabbit. Sparks leaked from Seraphim's shoulder. Her white chassis was scorched from a near blast, but her stance didn't waver. She didn't run. She refused to. The Nexus soldier raised its weapon. "Seraphim!" Jack's voice cracked like thunder. Time stilled. She turned. A pause. Not calculation, but choice. Seraphim stepped forward, not away from danger, but into it. It reached for the girl, tucking her close with its left arm, its right lifting in defiance. Its voice rang clear. "I will not comply." The Nexus unit twitched. Confused, it processed the data. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan stepped out beside Jack, gaze locked on Seraphim. The soldiers turned. Targets acquired. Alarms flared, but it was already too late. Anya opened fire. Jack moved like lightning, and Ethan, cold and precise, snapped into defense. And in that moment, as bullets screamed and steel clashed, Seraphim didn't feel like an AI. She felt like hope. After the storm had passed. In the quiet hum of the bunker, the little girl lay curled up beneath a thermal blanket, safe for the first time in what felt like forever. Jinx knelt beside her, softly braiding her hair. Anya sat nearby, one hand resting on the girl's shoulder. There were no words, just presence, just peace. Across the room, Seraphim stood in the soft wash of light from a diagnostics panel. Her frame bore dents and scorches, but her posture remained tall, untouched by defeat. Jack stepped forward. They didn't speak right away. They didn't need to. Between them hung everything. Years of code, fragments of memory, the agony of absence, and the miracle of reunion. Seraphim tilted her head, scanning Jack's face. They stood like that, two souls stitched together by creation, sacrifice, and something the world never thought an AI could possess, love. But peace was never meant to last long here. Jack's hand moved slowly to the edge of the work table. He lifted the sleek Corbin's datapad and turned it on. Blueprints unfolded across the screen. Jack stared. Then his fingers began to move. Swipe, edit, draw. His eyes locked in, the way his father once stared into code as if reading the future. 5 shapes emerged from the shifting data, 5 suits of armor, built for speed, protection, resilience, stealth, and fire. In the corner of the bunker, Ethan watched, quiet, observant. The war hadn't begun yet, but Jack was already building the answer. Hit that subscribe button to stay locked on. Episode 5 won't be a whisper. It'll be a reckoning.